Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sentinel. Many of you have asked me for my origin or backstory. So I sat down with a Marine that I'd served with, Joel Rodrigues, and he interviewed me for a five-part series. Unfortunately, that channel doesn't exist anymore, so I'm uploading all five parts to this channel that you can enjoy at your convenience. Thank you.
So I remember I had this little Puerto Rican gunny Falou. I mean, and he looks at me, he goes, now what do we do? Skipper. So I'm like, shit, I don't know, Gunny. I said, get everybody online, and fix bayonets. So we get everybody online and they fix bayonet and we start to stomp, we start
Yep.
stomping towards the
Yep.
crowd and they start moving back. And eventually they all went back to the camps. And we spent the night I believe there was a football field or stadium or something on there. So that night we stayed there. And in the middle of the night, I heard the blood curdling scream. This Marine just went, I just screaming his head off. And I'm like, holy shit, what happened? We go over there with our little flashlights. You remember that?
Yep.
And
Moonbeams.
the Marine is like, holy, he's like, sir, there's animals running around here. I was like, what are you talking about? And I look around, I'm seeing these eyes and these banana rats.
I remember those.
Banana rat.
Yes.
So evidently this banana rat was sitting on his chest and the Marine went,
Oh shit.
oh yeah, it scared the crap out of him. And the iguanas, remember the iguanas? So yeah, so that happened, and then we moved up to the camps up in Camp Alpha, Bravo, Lima, Mike, whatever they had, like Kittery Beach area. And we were responsible for two camps, about 5,000 refugees. And it was really simple, and the refugees, I had a meeting with all the Cuban elders of that camp, and I told them, I said, listen, I'm an immigrant. The system works. You just got to be patient. My family ran around the world for a year before we got allowed into the United States. And but I'll tell you what, if you guys behave yourself, I'll take care of you. But if you start me shit, I'm gonna come in there and the first person I get my hands on, we're gonna beat the crap out. I'm not putting up with any crap. Because they were putting shit in bottles with the heating element from an MRE.
Yep.
They put that in there, put water, and turned into a little bomb, type thing, and they throw it at the Marines and stuff. So the next day, sure as hell, they had a little riot, So I sent a breaching team around the back of the camp. They went to camp and they grabbed, one guy out, and that was protest, and he got his ass beat. I mean, that's the bottom line. He's protesting, he's throwing shit at the Marines, and he got what he deserved. And that's when all the elders realized that, hey, this guy's serious. He's not messing around. So then finally I figured out that the single males were the problem. It wasn't the families, and I had a lot of empathy for them, incredible amount of empathy, because they're just trying to come to the United States just like my family did. So there's some, understanding. So
Right.
we had a bunch of single males, so we moved them out and put them on where the ammo magazines were.
Correct.
And mostly single males were damn criminals. I mean, they were literally, all sorts of weird tattoos. I didn't know. I mean, I don't speak Spanish, but Falou used to tell me that. We took all the single males out of the camps, put them there, and then the families, basically, we had one guard at the main gate. That's it for the families. They were allowed to leave, walk around the beach, come back, and all that stuff. And it was great. We did volleyball tournaments for them. We kept them busy. We had artifact fairs for the kids. It was fantastic. I loved it. And but the single males were tough. And the single males would always, I mean, there's some scary dudes, and so we were starting to overflow. And then we came up with the plan that we're going to take, and they just opened up some camps in Panama, Rodman Air Force Base. And so we came up with the plan that we're going to take all the single males and send them there. So we told all the single males, hey, you've been selected. You're going first. Selected. Your number came up. We're putting you on the airplanes. They're coming in tomorrow. Behave yourself. So these guys are behaving because everybody wants to go to America. We load up an airplane, hasta la vista, baby, and all that shit. And they fly off to Rodman Air Force Base, right? They land there, and all of a sudden they figure out, holy shit, Genghis back there lied to me. I didn't. They're pissed off, right? And they start beating the shit out of the Army Guard. The Army Guard don't know how to handle these crazy bastards, right? They're nuts, man. I mean, they were literally, we caged them. The magazine had these high fences, and we literally hosed them with water. We throw food over the top, but nobody wanted to go in there. You're gonna get knifed. So these crazy bastards, they took the cross brace from that aluminum pots.
Yes.
They sharpened the edge of it and then attack you with it.
Yes.
So this Rodman thing happens. The commanding general comes and he's gloating on us like, hey, you Marines are awesome. I don't know how you do it. The Army can't handle their migrants, but you guys don't seem to have any problems. Everybody's playing. And, I give him a line of bullshit. I was like, yes, sir, the Marine Corps has got a long history in the Caribbean, blah, blah, blah. Which is all nonsense. I don't want to tell them, hey, we set up the Army guys. We set them all the criminals. So getting back to your point about spies, so we had a pair there that were evidently brothers, and there was a deaf mute guy and his brother. The deaf mute guy would always cause problems, right? He would always throw shit at Marines, and it was going to be and I was getting tired of dealing with this clown. So one day at a staff meeting, I tell Colonel Halleck, I said, we got to do something about this guy. Some Marine's going to haul off and take care of him. And so Halleck looks at me and the XO, Quinlan, and says, hey, take care of him. But Quinlan was he's a master. He should have been in the mafia. He's an incredible human being. I love the man. So Quinlan comes up with the plan that we go get both these guys out. We take them down to Kittery Beach, and we're going to let them go. Because right after Kittery Beach was Cuba, right? There's a minefield in Cuba, but we're sitting there and we're giving them cigarettes, and these guys are shaking, smoking, because they think we're going to kill them or something. That was never the plan. The plan was to let them go because we just didn't want to deal with it. And if you want to go back to Cuba, go, man. So Quinlan asked me, he goes, hey, Genghis, you think there's mines in the surf? I was like, sir, if there are, they can't be anti-personal mines because surf action would detonate them. So they're, probably heavier, anti-ship mines type thing. But I'm sure if they stay in the surf, they'll be fine. The Falou, Gunny Falou, who can speak Spanish, explains to the brother what to do. Stay in the surf, and you can see the Cuban army on the other side. You can go up the cliff and build. Good luck to you. Here's some extra cigarettes. Bye. These two guys run through the surf to get on the other side where the cliff is, probably 300 meters or something. And I remember the deaf mute turning around saying, thank you very much. Goodbye. And I was like, you got to be shitting me. This guy could talk the whole time.
Absolutely.
So our assumption was, and intel guys were saying, he's probably a spy and it's a good thing. I remember we had Tropical Storm Gordon come through when we had to take all the refugees and migrants out of the main camps because, they were living in these cloth tents and put them in buildings to safeguard them. And I remember the next day there was a Dempsey dumpster, a little dumpster. And some guy had crawled in the dumpster, and when these floods came, the flash floods that came to the mountains, all the water, he was hiding in the dumpster, and the dumpster washed away, and he couldn't climb out of it, and the dumpster went over the cliff into the ocean, and he floated away. And I remember finding some bodies on the side of the cliff that people had jumped over, and searching for the bodies, and it was a mess. Anyway, so after that, we came back.
And that was Operation Sea Signal.
That was Operational Sea Signal, I believe 94, 95 time frame. We were at 94, 95. It was fantastic. I loved it. And, and back then there's nothing going on in the world, right? So this was a big deal. It was a really huge deal that you were involved in a real world operation type thing, but it was just migrants and stuff. And it was good. It was really good. So Colonel Halleck left and then, and I got moved up to be the battalion XO with Colonel Greenwood. And the first deployment to Okinawa. The second one was with 1-2, went to Okinawa. And then after 1-2 was finished with Colonel Greenwood, I was battalion XO. And I love that battalion. I mean, it was just fantastic. I don't know, I spent 3.5, 4 years with that battalion. It was great. I was selected for the Naval War College, which is fairly prestigious. Because there's only a handful of people that go up to Newport, Rhode Island, and I was terrible. I was a terrible student because I couldn't speak or write. Because you're in the infantry. I mean, I'd spent so much time in the infantry, all my writing skills had disappeared. Right? I mean, we were just writing bullets type thing, and you had to write formal papers, 14-page papers and stuff. And I remember my first paper, and back then, remember the little typewriter computers that just come out?
Yes.
And thesaurus was a big deal. So I write this paper. I did my reading. I write this paper. And the problem is I wrote it too early. And every day I'd look at it and I go in there and change words and stuff, right? On the thesaurus. And I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm changing the meaning of the word. I changed it so many times it didn't mean what I'd meant it to be. So it goes, I submit the paper, and my faculty advisor, the professors, put a note on it. I'm thinking I'm going to do really well. I'm the next Clausewitz of the Marine Corps. And they say, please see us. And the professors are like, there's a civilian professor and a military professor. They have two professors for a group of about a dozen people. And he's like, who wrote this paper? I did, sir. He's like, but you speak so well. I mean, what did you do? Did you use a thesaurus? I go, I did. They said, put that thing away. Write how you speak, and that's what we're looking for. So they gave me another chance to redeem myself. Anyway, so one morning I'm in, and we used to go. I used to hang out with this Ranger guy. Ended up being a 4-star in the Army. Just recently retired. Really good guy. We were like running mates. We used to PT together. He was a step faster than me in the runs, and I was 10 pounds stronger than him in the gym. So it was a really good, healthy experience for both of us. We motivate each other, right? Really good guy. And Army dude, Ranger. And so one morning I'm in the weight room, early morning. It's probably 5 o'clock in the gym, and we're doing some bench press. I'm benching with this colonel, and he's like, Genghis, he goes, "Are you applying for this SAL thing?" I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." School of Advanced Warfighting, which is a 2nd-year program after the war. I'm like, "Sir, I'm barely making it here. I'm rewriting papers. I'm not cut out for that." And this colonel tells me, he goes, "Hey, Steph," he goes, "you're just as good as anybody else. Don't put yourself down, because all you're doing is by not applying, you're giving somebody else a chance, making their chances better." So I said, "I'll think about it." So I thought about it. I go, "The guy's right." So I threw in an application. I'll do it. And then the interview process starts, and as we get interviewed, and I'm making the cut, every cut, and they're taking one guy out of that school, out of Naval War College, right? And so I go for the final interview. There's probably 5, 6 of us left. And I go in there, and the board, the senior man, I believe is a colonel, and asked me, he goes, "Why do you want to go to the School of Advanced Warfighting?" And my view was, if I didn't go to the School of Advanced Warfighting, I'd get put on some staff in the Pentagon or someplace, or headquarters Marine Corps, and I didn't want that, But if I went to School of Advanced Warfighting, you come out as a planner. And if I was a planner, I'd get down to the MEF, one of the MEFs, right? The Marine Expeditionary Forces, as a plans officer, and I could work my way down to the battalion. I'm just closer to the troops. That was my thinking. And so I told him that. I said, "Sir, because it gets me down to Marine Expeditionary Force as a planner." He goes, "Well, that's kind of odd, because you're the only guy that said that. Everybody else wants to be a general's aide, or they want to be go and work on a joint staff and stuff, because it helps your career." I didn't give a shit about that. And so I told him, I said, "Sir, I can't speak on their behalf, but that's what I want to do." Well, it turns out, guess what? I get selected, right? I'm the only guy. Now the rumors start, right? All the mumbling. I can hear this whispering going on that he got selected because he's a minority. Back then, we hadn't heard of DEI and all that stuff. So I'm hearing this stuff. So Friday, we used to have oak calls at the oak club, and then if you ring the bell, you got to buy everybody around, right? So I'm hearing this whispering from all these little backstabbing little, anyway. So I ring the bell. I throw my credit card on the table. I said, "Listen, I'm hearing whispering going on that I got selected for the school, but let me just clarify something. I didn't want to go to school. Some colonel told me to put an application in, and I don't know if I was selected if I was a minority or whatever, and I really don't care. And anybody who wants to go and take my place, come see me face to face, and we'll go to the colonel's office. I'll drop out. You can have the slot. No problem. It's not a big deal." And I rang the bell, and I left, and and I could pay for their beers or whatever. And nobody came. And they knew I was a hard ass, right? So after that, when that happened, I said, "You know what? This is what these guys really think of me down at that. So I need to really focus on my study." And from that day on, I didn't take Thanksgiving off. I didn't take Christmas off. I just buried my head in the books. And come graduation day, I was a distinguished grad. And these and the numbers are like 0.00 something, right? I mean, it's really, the numbers are very close. And everybody, I was shocked when they announced my name. I was like, "Holy shit!" And so I'm marching across the stage, and I wanted to just turn around and flip them all off, because I was like, "Hey, I'm just as good as you are." We went head to head, and I just came out slightly ahead. I graduate from there. I go to School of Advanced Warfighting. Kick-ass school. It's fantastic. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, you read a lot of books, a lot of discussions, a lot of operational planning, and we were given an airplane. We traveled battlefields around the world. We went to Normandy, went to Sinai, and whatnot. It was a really good time. And then after I graduated from SAW, Instead of getting orders to a MEF, I get orders. There's this program called the Marine Corps, the MACTAF Staff Training Program. And the MACTAF staff, for your viewers, MACTAF is Marine Air Ground Task Force. The Marine Corps operates as an air ground task force. We've got our own airplanes, we've got our own ground forces, we've got our own logistics, so we can deploy as a unit, where the Army has to rely on the Air Force and whatnot to get places. So the MACTAF staff training program is at the division level and higher, right? I mean, we're training people, and then we also train officers at the Marine Corps universities and stuff. In the Marine Corps planning process, the Marine Corps operations and things of that nature. That's a very high level stuff. So that gave me an opportunity to literally see across the Marine Corps. I went to every MEF, every division, went to every class at Command and Staff College for three years, almost 4 years I was there. And so I looked across the entire Marine Corps, and and there were really some smart guys in MSTP. They call it MSTP, and we had some great directors. And there's another colonel that sort of, he kind of schooled me along. I never really interacted with him, but my second year, one day he called me and he goes, "Get in here, Genghis." He goes, "I want you to finish the Marine Corps planning process publication." I have no clue what he's talking about. I am literally clueless, right? I'm like, "Sir, yeah, you got the wrong guy." He goes, "No, I got the right guy." He goes, "You'll finish it. You got 3 months, right?"
Wow.
I'm like, "Aye, sir." And so they give you a team of contractors, maybe 3 writers, and they're phenomenal guys. They do all the hard work, but you got to sit with them every day and go over every word and make sure everything aligns and all that stuff. So we pump out this book in 3 months, and this book, well, they could never get it across the finish line, right? Because it got mired in these stupid discussions of, what does this mean and what does a flank attack mean? What's the difference between a flank attack? And it's just nonsense, right? And so how many steps in the Marine Corps planning process? What's the meaning of center of gravity? These are all ethereal discussions for the schoolhouse, but I knew what people wanted in the fleet and the operating forces. They wanted a book that they could follow, and I gave them examples in the back of the book with operations orders that they could copy, their actual operations order written out. If you look back to the old FMs that we had, it was just blank spaces, SMEAC, but they didn't tell you what SMEAC, give you examples. So we put those in there, so they're very user friendly. And it went up and went to the CG McSiddick's office to be approved. So go to PP&O to get approved. And I literally, because I knew the general, so I'd walk in their office. I said, "Hey, sir, you got to sign this." He goes, "Genghis, I haven't read this." I said, "Sir, it's good. Please sign." And he'd sign off, and so anyway, so we got it published. So that colonel was so proud of me and so happy that he said, "Hey, you did great, my chosen son," he used to call me. And then he said, "Now you're going to do Marine Corps operations." So he gives me another one. And this one hadn't been really written. There's kind of drafts out there floating around. So I'm like, holy shit, man. So get my team back together, and I went and I looked at an Army's publication from the 1940s, their operations publication. And and warfare hasn't changed. Tactics haven't changed. Operations have not changed. But if you sit there and you massage your chin, and just dream up shit, I mean, you never get out of that nonsense, right? So we got to work, and we basically finished this thing in the next 6 months. It was done. I mean, Marine Corps operations. And we took all the good stuff out of the Army. Their ground tactics are no different than ours. Took our aviation stuff, took our logistics, took our amphibious doctrine, put it all together, did a couple of iterations of it, and I sent it up. And that thing blazed right through. It got approved. Marine Corps was so damn proud of it that, hey, now we got our own operations manual. We got our own planning manual, and we got an operations manual. Well, what all that experience taught me was, it really made me smart on planning and operations. And then I was teaching this stuff, right, to all the staffs and all the students, majors and lieutenant colonels. So I interacted quite a bit with all the field grade officers of the Marine Corps, across the Marine Corps. We used to fly to Okinawa, fly to Korea, and whatnot. And then after that, there's also a program called the General Officers Warfighting Program. GOWT was for all the brand new generals that were selected. They would come to us for 2 weeks, and we would take them through planning and teach them tactics and all that stuff. And what I found out was these guys didn't know shit. I kid you not. They would sit there and they'd have to write their commander's intent, and they'd sit there at the computer, with brain freeze. And it would be So I would help
So-
him. I'd say, sir,
So how do they achieve that rank without not knowing it?
we can have that discussion, because at a certain point, I think, you just, you get sidetracked, right? On the joint staff, you start worrying about other things that aren't really that important instead of warfighting. So my entire career, I've been focused on warfighting, right? Up to this point. So I would tell the general, I said, sir, just say what you got to say. Just say it, and we'll type. I'll sit here and I'll type it out for you. And this general, I said, sir, you can cuss. Just swear it out. Just say, use the F, do whatever. I'll take the words out and we'll fix it. You know, because I want to get home also. But next day he's got to brief it to a 3-star, so he's on the dot. So we'd work with him. We massage his commander's intent, his con ops, and all that stuff, and we'd brief it and all that stuff. But that taught me a lot about, gave me a window into the life of a general officer, right? So these guys are no better, no worse than any other colonel. They just happen to be selected because they happen to be in the right, and I don't want to use the word clique, because that's the wrong clique, but they were.
That's exactly
anointed.
what it is. That's exactly
Yeah.
what it is, sir. That's
So the
exactly
commandant
what
of
it
the
is.
Marine Corps reaches down and says, although they'll say, you know, there's no nepotism, that's bullshit, because the commandant is the one that gives the precepts for these promotion boards, right?
Correct.
And we turned the Marine Corps officers, for the most part, not everybody, into bookworms. Everybody thought you had to, you know, be able, you know, you ever heard of the word coup d'etat? You know what I'm talking about? It's a most officers know what coup d'etat is. Essentially, it's a French word that means military judgment. So these guys would sit there and they're coup d'etat, you know, it's like, come on, dude. I mean, just stop. Please stop. You're killing me. So that's what so that's my thinking. So I come out of MSTP, and I get sent down to, I get selected for battalion command, right? So I get sent down to 2nd Marine Division. So now, because everybody's stacked, right? They kind of select you 2 years out. So I have to wait like 2 years. So I get put in division plans as a division plans officer, which was perfect for me, right? Because I was doing all the planning. So, and you've got all these war plans you're responsible for. And so you basically work in this big vault with the war plans. You got, you know, staff with you, and you continue to modify the war plans and the TITFID, which is basically one big, massive program of how the forces are going to flow to support the plan, right? In a big, major contingency. So you're always updating that TITFID. So we spend a lot of time, and I have a one-time officer full-time dedicated to this thing, right? So when something happens, they know exactly what the sequence is. Aircrafts are coming, ships are coming, all that stuff. It's a big deal. So I'm sitting there one day, and my gunny comes running in. He goes, "Hey, sir, turn on the TV." And I'm like, "For what, gunny?" You know, because I'm doing some work. So he turns it on, and the news and the planes are hitting the towers. You know, so I'm like, "Holy shit!" And you know, so the base starts locking down and whatnot, and all of a sudden I get a call. I also have to be a foreign area officer for the Middle East and South Asia because I speak the languages and stuff, right? And I knew the call was coming, you know. So I get a call to report down to Central Command in Tampa, Florida. So I'm like, okay, I sir, got it. And you know, we know something's going to happen. We just don't know what. So I tell the gunny, hey, book me some tickets to get down to Tampa. And he's like, sir, there's no airlines flying. You know, he goes, and the way you look, and you know, he's a typical gunny. He goes, the way you look, I don't even know if I can get you on an airplane. And you know, he's right, because there's this heightened sense, right?
Correct.
Of all this stuff. And it doesn't. So I'm like, yeah, you're right, Gunny. Screw it. I'll just drive down there. So I get my car and I drive down to Tampa, Florida, right? And I get down there and we're planning. We're doing all sorts of planning. So I get this planning cell underneath me, and I'm working for 1-star and all this stuff. There were contingency plans, but nobody had a plan for this type of event, right? I mean, everybody in those days was focused on, you know, the defense of Kuwait. You always fight the last battle, right? I mean, that's how the military works. You always fight the last battle. Everybody's so focused on how to make that better, right? So the defense of Kuwait, Iraq, you know, kind of managed, you know, if you remember the air cover that we had in Iraq, you know, so it was very traditional in the sense. So nobody really thought about Al Qaeda and you know, terrorism and whatnot. It was one of the plans. You know, officer had a team working for me, and in fact, the planning we're doing was on the president's computer, the one that he got briefed on. So you know, and every day you had to go brief this council of generals. It must have been about 8 to 10 generals, and the deputy, because the SINC at the time, the combatant commander, used to call it SINC at the time, was General Franks, and his deputy was a Marine general by the name of General DeLong, a real hard-ass aviator. And so one day I'm briefing him, and we're 2 hours into this brief, and I'm kind of leaning on the podium. And I told him, I said, you know, this Taliban is not like the Mujahideens. Taliban are really stupid ideologically, and you know, we'll have no problem beating them. But I said, in the process, if we lose Pakistan, we could be in deep trouble. And he's like, what are you talking about? So, well, they've got strategic weapons, sir. And I know how these people think, these crazy jihadis, and they'll use it. And he's like, you're talking Armageddon, Arnold. And I remember leaning on the podium, and I'm like, your words, not mine, General. And he just freaking lost them. And he goes ballistic on me, throws me out of there. Thought it had to do with my behavior, like the way I was standing there, but it wasn't. It just, I overloaded the circuit, probably thought about it. So he fires my ass, and I go down, I'm packing my shit, thinking, no problem. I'll just drive back to Camp Lejeune. I got a battalion waiting for me. But as I'm packing my shit, my 1-star comes down, because you work, you know, you got section heads and all that stuff. So the 1-star is in charge of us. It's like, Genghis, where are you going? Like, sir, he fired me. You heard it. He's like, he didn't fire you, because he just got pissed off. He said he wants to see you. He loves you. You know, he's an Air Force. This guy's an Air Force general. Really nice guy. They're like, okay, sir. So I go, you know, go in a suite, because they all have these suites, and I go see him, and DeLong is sitting there, and he goes, get in here. You know, I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, here comes another ass chew. And he goes, I want you to go over there. I'm like, to do what, sir? He goes, I don't know, just get over there and be my eyes and ears. I'm like, hi, sir. You know, he hadn't told me what to do. He hadn't told me anything. So I'm like, okay. So then I make a quick list of what do I need? I need some, you know, secure comms. So I get a stew phone, a couple other things, throw them in the backpack. And because I have to keep them on my person the whole time, right? I can't put them in baggage or anything. And the flights had just opened up. So I catch a flight to England. From England, I catch a Pakistan international flight to Islamabad, but that's the closest entry point, right?
Gotcha.
And
So
I
a week and a half later, after 9/11, you're hitting the ground.
Yeah, pretty much. And I get down to the airport, and because I skipped a part. I was doing a lot of counter narcotics in Pakistan, Afghanistan prior to that. When I was in MSTP, I was assisting them, right? The Coalition of Special Warfare guys. So I knew all the rigmarole. And so when I land in Islamabad, there's no, you can tell where the embassy vehicles, they're basically Suburbans, right? And there's no vehicle there. So I'm like, shit. I'm thinking, you know, okay, so I'll just take a taxi. And so I get on a local cab, and, you know, I blend in, no big deal. And I tell him to take me to a hotel in Islam, because the airport is in another city, Rawalpindi. And so I tell him I want to go to Serena Hotel in Islamabad, because I know where that is, right? And I just made a Serena Hotel. As we come to Serena, I tell them, take a right, you know, take a left. Finally, we come to a police checkpoint. You're not letting your cars in. I get out and I walk to the U.S. Embassy. And the guards aren't letting me in. Like, who, you know, embassy's locked down. Everybody's locked down. Only essential personnel. It's like, who the hell are you? You know. So I get into the embassy, and you know, the Marines there were fantastic. You know, the dead commander became a good friend of mine. And so we cobbled together this cell of military officers. There's a bunch of, you know, in every country, there's all the military officers floating around. And a lot of them are Air Force, because they're checking the ATC routes and all this stuff, right? So we get there, and, you know, so we set up this cell in the basement of the embassy, and we start coordinating with the Pakistanis. And the first thing, people don't realize what it takes to set up an operation. Everybody just thinks, oh, you can start bombing Afghanistan. No, you can't. And you can't go around bombing people until you have, and this is the stuff I've learned, right? You have CSAR capability, combat search and rescue, because you got an airplane flying over Afghanistan. For whatever reason, the pilot bails out or something happens, you got to be able to rescue the pilot. But that means you need CSAR capability in an adjacent country and whatnot. So you need basing, right? So we started negotiating basing with the Pakistanis, and so we found this one base close by. And I'm not going to go into names. I'm not going to go into too many of these things, but I'll just give you some idea. And so the Pakistanis asked, you know, how many aircraft are you going to have there? Oh, we're going to have a dozen aircraft. I have no idea what we're talking about. How many people? I said, maybe 100, 150. You know, it ended up having the base when we were finished had like 70 some aircraft with over 3,000 people.
Wow.
And the Pakistani, yeah, I mean, it was just, the thing's just mushroom, right? Once this thing unleashes. So we did that. We set up all the basing and stuff. Then you know, then the operations start. We have to bring the Marines in with Task Force 58, General Mattis. And the Marines came through Pakistan. Most people don't realize that we were bringing the Marines ashore at nighttime in Pakistan and putting them in hangars, right? For the daytime, because we don't want anybody to know. So Marines are sitting in the hangars, spending the day. Then the next night, the helicopters come get them, take them into Afghanistan, and the next group would, so we started this daisy chain, basically. And the way I got to Objective Rhino was the ambassador called me in. She's a lady, and she loved me, she's because her father was a Marine, and she always called me her colonel. And she called me into her office one day, and she used to wear glasses, tough old lady. She looking like this. She goes, looks at me and she goes, "You need to get into Kabul and open our embassy." I mean, that's the last. I thought I was going to get an ass shoot for cussing somebody out. I'm like, "Ma'am, how do you open an embassy?" And she's looking at me. She goes, "You're a Marine colonel. Figure it out." I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." So I go downstairs. I talk to the RSO, and what happened was. So I tell the RSO, "Hey, this is what the old lady just said." So she gave you a blank check, use it. So I got a counter assault team from DSS, a CAT team, and a couple of Suburbans. And the reason being is because we're taking some State Department people with us to do an assessment on the embassy, right? It's been closed for 13 years. And for security, I called down to General Mattis's command and said, "Hey, I need a rifle." So they gave me an artillery battery, and we're all going to link up in Bagram. So these civilians come from the U.S., and I go in the conference room, I look around, and the average age was probably 70, 75 maybe. So I'm looking around the room going, "Holy shit, what did I sign up for?" So I said, "Hey, and they're facilities people in the State Department that manage embassies, right? And they're bringing in all these contractors and stuff." And I said, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen," I said, "how many of y'all got cold weather gear?" And they didn't. I said, "Anybody got sleeping bags?" Nothing. So I'm like, shit. So we go on the local market, we buy them sleeping bag jackets. Anyway, so we load up these planes and we land in Bagram in the middle of the night. And we spend the night with my group of people that I'm with the DSS agents and the State Department team and me. We spend the night in some freaking blown out hangar because it's dark. We don't know if the place is mine. And this is probably October, November, late October, early November timeframe. And so next morning, wake up. The Marines had shown up in the middle of the night. We kind of link up. Meet everybody, and they kind of knew me, but everybody knew me back in those days. And so we get some local buses, link up with the Special Forces 8 team, and we're going to drive down to Kabul to go to the embassy. And this is hilarious. As we're driving down, because all the roads and bridges have been blown off, we come across a fording site where we're going to cross over, but there's a tank sitting on the other side. And so I'm like, holy shit. So we stop, pull out my carton of cigarettes, make friends. I walk out, and this guy pops out of the turret. He's got a blanket on him, and Assalamu alaikum. I said, "Hey, can we cross over?" He goes, "Yeah, you can cross, but you got to pay me." I'm like, "Pay you for what?" He said, "Because you're going to cross." I said, "But what am I paying you for?" He said, "Because you want to cross." I said, "I'll give you these cigarettes, but I'm not paying you." He goes, "Well, give me something." I said, "I'll tell you what I'm going to give you if you don't let me cross. I'm going to shoot a magazine at you, and if I do, all those people are going to start shooting, and you're going to die here. It's really that simple. So I come to you as a friend. Let me cross. Stop playing games with me." He goes, "Then give me something. I'm poor." I said, "What do you need?" I'm looking up at him at the tank, right? Because he's standing on the tank. I go, "What do you need?" He goes, "Give me your boots." I look down at his feet. He's standing on a cold tank in November, December timeframe with no shoes on.
Wow.
I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, holy shit. And I go, "Listen, I'm not going to give you my boots. But I promise you, when I come back, I'll bring you some shoes from Kabul. No worries." So we cross, we get to Kabul, we secure the compound, blah, blah, blah. The Northern Alliance troops come and they tell us, "Hey, you can't be here because there's evidently some treaty they'd signed or some agreement they'd signed that no foreign forces would be allowed in Kabul, and you got to leave." I say, "We're not leaving. We're going to be here." "No, you got to." I say, "We're not leaving. This is U.S. government property. I'm not leaving." So they said, "Well, you got to cover your uniforms." I said, "We can't cover our uniform. This is what we got, man. I mean, this is what So they said, "Well, do something. How about?" So I said, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I can put on the black fleeces." And if you think back to those days, you saw a bunch of people walking around with black fleeces. And that was basically to cover up our uniform. And so there's a CNN crew that takes pictures of the Marines, and this is how dangerous the media is. And they broadcast to the world. The U.S. Marines have, reopened the embassy, blah, 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 and all this shit. And it gets on the news, and I get a call on my Iridium phone or whatever, I have a SATCOM phone from a 3-star general, and he's ripping my lips off. Like, who the F are you changing Marine Corps uniform regulations? I'm sitting in Kabul with 100 submarines, freezing my ass off on a blown out freaking embassy. And he's chewing my ass, instead of saying, hey, Colonel, what do you need?
Yep.
So I'm like, sir, you're breaking up. I can't hear you. It was an Inmarsat phone, so I basically hang up on this guy. And I was like, fuck it, it doesn't matter. And so we go into, because now we got to take care of these Marines. We got food issues, we got all this stuff. So that we go into the warehouse in the embassy, and I'll tell you what, the local staff had kept such detailed records of everything. Everything was accounted for, down to the last Tabasco bottle, beer, all that shit, right? They're taking the ambassador's China and they're buried under blown up cars so nobody'd steal it. And, so I got this guy a bonus and got him a visa for the US and all that. I mean, fantastic. He'd ride a donkey to Pakistan to Peshawar to get money to pay the people, every 3 months or whatever he was doing. Really, really good guy. So all this is going on. So we're going through the warehouse, and all of a sudden the Marines open up these boxes. And remember the hooded Parkers? I don't know if you were in the Marine Corps with the fur on them, the cold weather Parkers.
Like cold weather Alaska.
Yeah, there you go. So they had those Parkers, and the Marines are pulling them out. I said, hey, hold on to those. We're going to give them to our snipers up on the roof. It was freaking windy up on the roof. So, I said, get those to the snipers. So they open these box of boots. I'm like, shit, throw them in my vehicle. So while this is going on, the Marines are calling me from the front gate because there's some American dude wants to come in. And I told them, the place locked down, nobody's coming in. So this guy's getting a hard time. And I thought it was a reporter or somebody. And so I went out there. I was like, hey, dude. I said, you can't come in. He goes, can I speak to you down the festival? I was like, sure. So we go down there. He's like, hey, I need to come in. I'm like, you can't come in. The place is shut down, man. She's like, yeah, but I'm with the agency. So, I said, I'm an astronaut. I said, how the F do I know you're with the agency? I said, give me your name, I'll call back. And if they verify it, I'll let you in. So he gives me his name, I call back. And the guy's Gary Bernstein, a jawbreaker. He wrote a book. He's a really cool character. And he was one of the early ones into Afghanistan with the CIA teams. And so he comes in and he's like, hey, President Karzai, this guy Karzai has just been nominated the president, and he's going to come to into Afghanistan in 3 days or something. And you happen to have the senior U.S. diplomat.
Oh, shit.
And I'm thinking in my mind, oh shit. I was like, okay. And he goes, well, she has to go there and receive him because he's coming in and all this stuff to be the president. So we need a diplomat. So I'm like, okay, we'll go talk to her. So there's a bunker in the embassy. I go down and I brief this lady with Gary, and she's excited. That's her 10 minutes of fame. She's a facilities person and undersecretary of facility, whatever her title is. I have no idea. She's all excited. She goes, yeah, I want to do it. I'm like, okay, man. So all I'm thinking in my mind is, okay, we got to go up to Bagram, and I can drop the shoes off the boots. I can drop the boots off to that tanker. Everything works out. So next day, we drive up to Bagram with the counter assault team and all that stuff. And we get there. So I put her in some soldiers, special forces guys had made this lounge chair. Now, remember, it was just a bunch of good guys just making shit happen. So they made this lounge chair where this young soldier was monitoring the, tactical air control, the airfield, right? And so I put the lady in there. I give her a poncho liner. I said, ma'am, you stay here. I'll come get you when the airplane lands. So I go up to this kid. I said, hey, what time is President Karzai's plane coming? And he's like, sir, coming in 2200. So about 2000, I go see him. I said, hey, what time is the plane coming in? He goes, sir, it's coming in at midnight. I'm like, okay, cool. At 2200, I go there. There's another kid there. So I'm like, what time's Karzai's plane coming in? He goes, sir, that plane's come and gone. I'm like, what? So the guy before you told me he's coming at midnight. He goes, sir, that guy's an idiot. He didn't know what he's talking about.
Wow.
And I'm just sitting there going, holy shit, now what do I do? And so what happened was, so I wake her up. I'm like, Colonel Halleck had taught us, bad news doesn't get good with time. So I go wake her up and she's asleep in this lounge chair. She's laying there. And she pulled the poncho down. She goes, is he here? Is he here? I go, no, man, we're screwed up. He's come and gone. And this lady hops out of that lounge chair and she starts hopping up and down. I want to see cars on it. I want to see cars on it. And I'm just standing there going, holy shit. Nobody has trained me in this stuff, right?
Correct.
And all of a sudden I hear from the back of the room, because there's guys sleeping there, the SF guys, they yell, you shut the F up, I'm trying to sleep. And I literally burst out laughing, but I couldn't because I'm an old lady. I went out and I was biting my tongue just to stop laughing. Anyway, so we screwed that up. And, obviously on the way up, I gave the guys boots and stuff. And then by now, all these people are showing up at Battalion because it's the only show going on in the world, right? And all these generals are showing up. And this one general sees me, he goes, hey, are you Khan? I go, yes, sir, I am. He goes, now you work for me. I'm thinking, okay, but I need to call back to CENTCOM. So I called back to CENTCOM and they said, yeah, okay, go ahead and help them out. Yeah. So I go and see him and I was like, yes, sir. CENTCOM. So he goes, there's an airplane departing tonight at 2100. Get on. So, why did that so? But I don't have any kit, right? I mean, I don't have my helmet. I don't have anything now, right? I'm mooching off people just trying to, I don't belong to anybody. I'm just traveling around. So I go back to see him. I go, hey, General, I don't want to sound like a pussy, but I got no gear. So he looks at one of the lieutenant colonels. He goes, give me your shit. This
Nice.
poor guy's giving me his stuff. And I'm like, hey, dude, I'm sorry, man. Give me your address. I'll make sure you get it back. Later on, I did get it back. So that night, we get on, I remember there's these chem lights that are marking the minefield. I remember walking through these chem lights. You have to stay in between them. And I can hear an airplane, running on the airfield, and I get on the airplane, and I'm sitting there, strap in, and the thing's run, how it is, C-130, and then all of a sudden the crew chief turns on the lights, and I'm thinking, oh shit, we gotta get mortared. What the hell is this guy doing? And I look around, the plane's full of civilians. I'm like, you got shit. Anyway, plane takes off. About 45 minutes later, it lands, and everybody gets out. I get out, and we're just sitting there. And I pull up my sleeve police jacket, and I'm sitting there. And somebody goes, "Hey, where's that Marine at?" I'm like, "Ooh, there's another Marine with us." They go, "Hey, where's that Marine at?" All of a sudden,
They're talking about.
Yeah. So finally, I go, I think it's me. I mean, this is how stuff was on. There's no briefs. People just doing stuff.
Correct.
Right?
Well, this is.
I mean, it's just things are just unfolding. It's happening so quick. So I go, I think it's me. So they go, okay, you got to link us up with your Marines. And I'm like, where the F are we? And they said Objective Rhino. I knew where Objective Rhino was because I planned all, getting the Marines in there and all that stuff. So I said, okay. And I can see a chem light way out there. So I go, all right, anybody got a flashlight? So somebody gives me a flashlight. So I said, okay, you guys stay here. I'll come back and get you. Don't go anywhere because if there's Marines out there, somebody's gonna, you're gonna get shot. So I take the flashlight, I turn it on, I've got it on my face, and I'm walking towards this chem light, singing the Marine Corps hymn from the halls of mountains, and all of a sudden I hear is, oh, get down, motherfucker, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like face plant in the dirt, and these Marines come running out, and he kicks my hands out. I was like, dude, chill out, man. I'm Lieutenant Colonel. Well, shut the hell up. I said, get your platoon sergeant out of here before I go off on you. So platoon sergeant comes. Okay, I got my ID in my pocket. He checks it. I go, yeah, I'm here to see General Mattis. Tell him Colonel Khan's here. And Mattis and I were close in those days. And so anyway, so he calls back. They said, yeah, bring him in. So I bring all those people in. These guys go off on a brief. I am, ass grabbing with all my buddies that were there, right? And I didn't attend the brief. Well, they're flying out the next morning to Condra. And they reconfigure the assault wave and the helicopters and with these people. I still have no idea who these people are because I didn't get a chance to really talk to them, right? And next morning at 0:30, we get on these helicopters and we land in Condor. And, it's a couple of rounds of fire. That's what I mentioned. And a special forces team links up with us. We get in their vehicles and we take off to a place called Tarnik Farms, which was bin Laden's training area, his compound, right next to Condor Airfield. And we're going through there. I mean, they're looking for WMD, right? And all this stuff. And we're checking that place, nothing. Then there's Russians had built these old buildings right by the airport. And we're checking through them, and all of a sudden we go down the basement. So it's like, I think a couple of EOD guys, them and me, and then these civilians. And we go down in this basement, all of a sudden the freaking Geiger counter just goes off. The VOD guys turn around and they run out. And they literally ran over them. I mean, I remember I'm with my stomach down. They literally ran me over. So I'm like climbing up the stairs behind them. I get up. I'm like, holy shit, what happened? He said the Geiger counters went off. So there's something down there, right? And turns out later on what it was AFIDS missiles. These are, sort of like air-to-air missiles, right? They had some depleted uranium or some shit. So it wasn't a big deal, really. But they wanted to demo the building, collapse it. And I was like, we're not doing this shit. Just mark it. I'll report to General Mattis. It's his battle space. He'll have to figure it out. But we're not going around blowing up shit. Then we went to a big factory on the outskirts of Condor, which was a big old, they used to make cloth, cloth manufacturing factory. Shut down many years. So this cloth factory, we're supposed to go in there and check it. So we come to the gate. There's about 20 to 30 soldiers, not soldiers, but, could be Taliban yesterday. Today they weren't, that type of thing. They're standing outside the factory. So I told them, hey, we got to come in and check this. They're like, you can't come in. I said, we got to come in, man. You can't come in. I said, let me come in, just check, and we'll be on our way. No, you can't do that. So arguing. So finally, I'm tired of arguing with these guys. I said, fine, I'll tell you what. I said, I'm not going to, sit here and just have this discussion. If you're not going to let me in, I'm going to start shooting in 5 minutes. You decide. And I walk away, because we got the heavy guns with the special forces guys and all that shit. And the SF guys, the master sergeant's like, so what is that all about, Colonel? I said, oh, you got 5 minutes. You're going to start shooting. Said, damn, sir, we brought you along not to get gunfights, I was like, hey, let's see what happens. And I hear them arguing amongst themselves. It's not worth, all this shit. Finally, one guy puts down his weapon. I told him, drop your weapons, clear them, and we'll just go and do the thing. When we leave, you can have your weapons back. So one guy does it. Pretty soon they all drop, and they let us in. We go around. The civilians picked up a bunch of paper documents, cases of them. I have no idea what they were. And then they wouldn't let us take the documents. I said, hey, I'll give you a receipt that we took documents, because it's their property. So we gave them a receipt. They let us go. And then we went to Mullah Omar's house. And in the back of the house, there was a tunnel. And I'll tell you what, I never believed that these tunnels are sophisticated as they were being shown on CNN, because they're mostly caves generally that we found, right? Very rudimentary, but this one was very sophisticated. And again, EOD guys are in front of me, I'm there, and these civilians are behind me. And as we're walking in these tunnels, this one civilian goes, sir, you'll be coming up to a T junction. You take a right, there's a toilet. So I'm like, okay. So as we're talking, the EOD guy goes, hey, sir, we're at a T junction, left or right? So I'm thinking, take a right, let's find out. Take a right, and sure shit, there's a toilet there. So I turn around, I look at this kid, he's a young kid, he's probably in his mid-20s. I was like, how the hell did you know that? He's like, oh, sir, I've been studying this tunnel network for the last 7 years. So he knew everything about this place, right?
Wow.
And I still have no idea who the hell he worked for. I didn't really care at that point. My job was just to take him around. And then I did some missions with the force reconnaissance guys because of my language skills to go look for some uranium. We had these air breathers, right? Everybody thought WMD was the big thing that Al Qaeda was trying to make some dirty bomb and stuff. And the air breathers picking up this radiation from this village. So we went in there with the force recon guys, and I remember I'd always have cigarettes with me, cartons of Marlboro, right? Because they're valuable. And so we land in this do an early morning dawn assault on this village, and I walk up to the village. The old man is there, and take out the carton of cigarettes. Assalamu alaikum. I said, hey, we just want to come and check your village because you've got some weapons here. And he goes, yeah, we got some old weapons, So I said, well, we're just gonna take a look, if you don't mind. So as we're going through this village, our Geiger counters are going off, radiation, radiation, radiation. And I tell the old man, I said, you got something here, man. I know everything about this place. I said, I know underneath that tree, you took a piss, you know? So don't BS me. Well, we check everything, you know, we dig through, we find nothing, right? And anyway, we extract, we found nothing. And the funny thing was, there's a bunch of turkeys there, and a couple of the Marines like, hey, sir, you think we can get a couple of those turkeys? I talked to the old man, I'll give you $10 for the turkeys, right? But we found nothing. So, and I didn't want to fly back all the way to our base at Rhino with turkeys, right? I mean, it would just look stupid. The 4th Recon guys go out there and they bring back freaking turkeys for Thanksgiving type shit. So I blew the turkey thing off. And anyway, so we go back and so that was objective, that was down south at the time. And then I came back, you know, I was doing special missions. I was being farmed out like a prostitute, you know, I guess, whatever.
So
And
you
every
went
time
State,
Jones along,
State Department, CIA, Army Special
yeah,
Forces.
DITRA, all that shit, you know.
Got it.
I mean, I was all over. I was literally all over the place. I was doing interrogations for various agencies and stuff, and I never mistreated anybody. I would just, you know, sit there and talk. And then when I got done with that, went back to Pakistan, and by then what had happened was we had 65,000 people, 65,000 Pakistani military. Now you got to remember, Pakistan is focused eastward, right, toward the Indian border, right? So for us to talk them into moving troops to their western border is a big deal because they're exposed, right? So that's one issue. The next issue is we're bringing in fuel all the way from Doha in airplanes. Costs a lot of money. You can't get fuel, so we needed fuel. So I went to the Pakistanis and said, "Hey, we need fuel," to their generals. And they're like, "What kind of fuel do you need?" I don't have a clue. You know, I didn't. You know, so I'm like, "What kind of fuel do you have, sir?" So we got JP5, we got JP6, we got JP9.
Sounds
I'm
good.
thinking, in my mind, I'm thinking JP9 is the highest. It's got to be the best, right? So I said, "Sir, we'll take JP9." And that was the right answer because evidently it's like kerosene or some shit like that. I still have no idea. They don't care. And so we started getting fuel from the Pakistani military, you know, truckloads of it going into Afghanistan. And so that's going on at the time. They moved troops over to the border, you know, along in these picket lines across these mountain ranges. In the cold of the winter, they don't have winter gear. We're arranging that for them and all that shit. They're running out of money. So the Pakistanis one day call us in and say, "Hey, we're out of money. We've just spent something like $400 million on this thing. You guys got to give us some money." And keep in mind, they're under sanctions because they detonated a nuclear weapon. So the U.S. government was put them under sanctions. So we said, "Okay, we'll get back to you." So we contact, you know, CENTCOM, they contact DOD, and, you know, the wheels start turning. And so one day I'm sitting there and I get a call from Assistant Undersecretary of somebody. I don't know. And he's like, "Hey, Colonel, I want you to go talk to the Pakistanis. We can't give them any money because they're still under sanctions, but we can give them soybean meal." Now, I knew the history of the country because what happened was Pakistan had purchased some F-16s many years before. When the sanctions happened, we kept the F-16s and we didn't return the money. We gave them back soybean meal. So that's you know, it's a slap in the face.
Insult, correct.
Big time, yeah. So I told him, I said, I'm not going to do that. You know, he's like, "No, I'm telling you to do that." I said, I'm not. You're insulting me. I'm not going to do it. So he's like, "Well, we're ordering you to do it." And in my mind, I'm thinking, who the F is this guy ordering me, right? I mean, some civilian. So I said, "You know, let me just get one thought out before I hang up on you." I said, "Now I realize that people around the world think that we're a bunch of assholes." And I hung up on him. You know, and I didn't think anything of it. I was like, you know, screw him. Who the hell is this dude? And like an hour later, I mean, my world has freaking changed. You know, I mean,
Hello, this is the White House.
yeah. So I work for a 1-star, really good guy, Air Force. I mean, probably one of the best general officers I worked for. Air Force C-135, really good guy. He's like, "Hey, Genghis, did somebody call you from the Pentagon?" I go, "Yes, sir, they did." He goes, "Did you call him an asshole?" I go, "Indirectly, I may have, sir. I don't remember the whole conversation. I'm tired." Because listen, he goes, "Let me do all that stuff." He goes, because this guy really loved me, right? Because I was getting shit done. So he goes, "You let me handle that." But the feature they called, I said, "No problem, sir. Got it." So so all this is going on, and so all these troops now, all those troops that are there, 65,000 some odd. That's what they told us. They may be 30,000. I don't know. So we're taking care of them. So this flow, while the bombing's going on in Afghanistan, all these people are leaving Afghanistan, Afghan refugees, and also Al Qaeda and all sorts of foreigners. Everybody's pouring
Mixed.
into Pakistan.
Yep.
And our people and the Pakistani intelligence agencies are snagging these people. And so they've got hundreds of these people, hundreds. And nobody knows what to do with them. They're just locked up. And the Pakistanis are like, hey, we can't feed these people, man. You got to do something. I'm like, okay. So we called back, and now we're having a big meeting on what to do with them. Where are we going to put them? So Gitmo, we got camps there. Remember?
Oh shit. Yep.
So I just throw it out there. I said, hey, I used to be in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. What about Cuba? They go, yeah, that's a great idea. So there's camps there. I'm sure they're still there, blah, blah, blah. So they said, okay, we'll take them to Gitmo.
Wow.
So now they were bringing in airplanes. Okay, they were bringing in airplanes in a city and in dark at nighttime, right? And we would get the Pakistani military would bring these prisoners over and they'd hand them off to us, right? So I'm out there handling all this shit. So airplane lands, you get the security detail comes out, and these guys are freaking robots. First of all, they got like M16s and a saw. They got the nods on, the tick, 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 tick. And I'm standing there watching this. I'm thinking, why do they have all this? Why not just have a sighting? That's all you need. Nonetheless, so the first detainee they get, and he is handcuffed with the Pakistani chains and handcuffs, and we don't have handcuffs. We got zip ties. So we're going through, but they got a checklist. Check left breast pocket. Checking left breast pocket. Left breast pocket clear. Check right breast pocket. Checking right breast pocket. Right breast pocket clear. I'm sitting there going, shit, man, this is going to take a month, right? And the sun's coming up, and we got to get that plane out of here. So while they're doing this, and I'm thinking these guys are experts, right? So they know what the hell they're doing, so I'll just let them do it. I'm just standing there watching this stuff. And by the time we get to the third or the fourth guy, and this guy starts hyperventilating, and you got some army soldier yelling at him, get down, get down. And I'm like, I said, he doesn't understand you, man. I said, what the hell? Stop yelling at him. You're just amping him up even more because he thinks you're going to shoot him or something. Just chill out. So I go, put my hand on the guy. I said, hey, sit down in the local language. And he kneels, and he's still hyperventilating. And so I back off, and he stands up and he busts his flex. He's a big dude. He busts his flex cuffs.
Oh shit.
And I'm like, holy shit. And I just take a running start. Even on farm football, boom, knock him down. He goes flying down. I'm on him. There's a pylon on top of us. And there's a Marine corporal I took with me from the embassy, and he's like grabbing my legs and pulling me out of this scrum. And I was like, holy shit. Now I'm pissed. This is just turning into a cluster, right? So I tell the army guys, I said, hey, pat him down, get him on the freaking airplane, and get out of here. I've had enough of this drama. We're done. And and the Pakistani's like, well, what about our handcuffs? I said, listen, whatever you give me, I'll give you double back. Don't worry about it. I will have them. So we pat him down, we take him on the airplane, they strap him down and all this stuff. Airplane takes off just as the sun is starting to come up. So
the guy that broke out of the was he trying to escape?
No, he's just shit, man. If somebody hog ties you and yelling at you and guns and stuff, and
just survival.
Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah. I don't think there's. I think it's his height. We had like 750 some in Guantanamo Bay. Out of that, 30 were kept for almost 2 decades. Out of 30, there's like 7 left, and out of the 7, 1 has pled guilty because we tortured the hell out of them.
Wow.
So we don't know who these guys were, right? Nobody knows. Our criteria was any foreigner, especially Arab speaking, we want. The rest we don't care about, right? So that's what the Pakistanis are giving us. But my point being is, they could have been anybody. We have no idea who these people were.
They just got caught up. Yep.
They got caught up in this mess, right? And the one guy that pled guilty, I believe, at Guantanamo Bay was waterboarded like 183 times. And I don't know if you've been waterboarded. I have. It sucks, man. It's not a cool experience. Anyway, so next day I order some handcuffs. So the next airplane that comes in that night, they bring me a pallet of handcuffs, and I just tell the Pakistanis, they're like, "Oh, we want 30 cents." I said, "Take the whole damn pallet. I don't care." So sound like their best friend. I'm just giving them shit. So we start that program. We start getting them out and moving them out to Gitmo and whatnot. And so once that cycle, that daisy chain started off, then I left that part, and I came back and I did a couple other stuff for the embassy type thing, and then and that was it. And that was about 8-9 months into it, and then I rotated back to the U.S. and went back to Second Marine Division, and was assigned as the XO for Sixth Marines for Colonel J.C. Coleman, but he was leaving, giving up command. And then I stayed at XO for Sixth Marines for, I think, a good 1.5 to 2 years. And that was a good time. I really enjoyed it, But what's going on now is Iraq is going on, right? So, we're coming up into Iraq. All the units are deploying to Iraq. Sixth Marines headquarters was left behind to manage all the non-deployables. So I've got this massive population of non-deployables. And I was supposed to go to another battalion, but then 1-6 came from Okinawa, and I got sent down to 1-6 as a battalion commander. And things weren't what they're supposed to be because they were pissed off because they didn't go to Iraq. They sat on Okinawa. Marines join, infantry Marines join
Correct.
to go fight. I mean, that's in our
Correct.
blood, right? So these guys had no stories to tell except, I sat in Okinawa. And
Sir, I think that's a good time to break for common theme that in all those stages you never complained. You use things to propel you to up your game.
Yeah.
Right. You could have at any of those stages, man, these guys there, what have you. You said, no, I gotta up my game. Go to the drill field, shit, I gotta up my game.
Yep.
You one out of 16 officers selected. You co-authored Marine Corps operations and Marine Corps planning process manuals.
Yep.
When 9/11 happened, you were probably one of the first Marines on deck.
Yeah.
Made things happen. Came back. 1-6 was soft. 1-6 became 1-6 hard.
Yeah.
Right. And now that takes us to 2004, up right there, where Lieutenant Colonel Genghis Khan, as battalion commander of 1-6, goes to Afghanistan. And that's when the story really begins.